one of the first dirty jobs we did, and to this day, one of my favorite ones, was a story of a pig farm up in North Vegas. And what made it so interesting was the guy who ran it, Bob Combs, fed his pigs the uneaten leftovers from the hotel casinos. And they were legion. They were manifold. There was just an endless variety of people food that he would haul back from Harrah's and Caesars and all of it and put it in this giant cooker in his backyard and reduce it to this ultra high protein bouillabaisse and feed it to his pigs that grew exponentially faster, literally off the appetites, the insatiable appetites of the very people we've been talking about who would stand in line for an hour and a half to get a picture next to a neon sign. So it's that what a weird rumination on abundance. There is everything and more that you need in Vegas, so much so that a pig farm can exist on the uneaten buffet food that people take on their fourth run, and even then come to the conclusion, you know what, even I can't clear this plate, and so it gets thrown away for the pigs. So in the abundance model, you're saying in a really short period of time, we went from scarcity to plenty faster than our genetic makeup could decipher the memo and alter our cravings?
Precisely. Exactly. I mean, that is an amazing story about the pig farm. I mean, here's an interesting fact. Okay, so we have these pigs who are eating, this boiled down shrimp cocktail and Chinese food and prime rib and whatever it might be.
Other pigs.
Other pigs.
Right,
got
bacon.
Got a little dark there. For all of time, a human being's job was mostly to walk around hunting and gathering for food. That was your job. That's what you did all day. I'm going to walk around today and I'm going to look for food. I'm going to hunt some food. You repeated that 365 days a year. You rarely had enough food. There were rarely times where you got fourths, much less seconds. And just the act of getting food, even as we started growing food, was this back-breaking, labor-intensive endeavor. So, for example, this stat I came across, it said that Mexican women, before the invention of the tortilla maker and the grand scale of industrialization of our food, they used to spend 5 hours a day kneading corn to make tortillas. That is hard work. That is a daily labor. And now they just come off a line and, the tourists, I think I've had enough of that. And they ends up with the pigs. And so our environments have just changed so much, and we haven't caught up to them. And it's not just food. It's the number of possessions that a person can have. I mean, even 150 years ago, the average person owned a handful of items, right? They'd have a couple outfits. They'd have some tools they used. They had the family Bible. They had maybe an heirloom they passed down. The average home today has anywhere from 10,000 to 50,000 items. 10,000 to 50,000. Wow. There are more storage units than there are Starbucks, Walmarts, Burger Kings, McDonald's, and Dunkin' Donuts combined.
Wow.
We have no upper limit. And so then you're like, okay, why the hell would a person own that much? And it goes back to what I said about our genetic sort of wiring not catching up with our modern environment. In the past, if you had tools, that would help you survive, right? Having more tools rather than less tools always made sense. You could accomplish things. You could live on another day. But now we live in a world of Amazon Prime purchases where you can get the thing for $10 in less than 2 days. Another great stat that I loved.
Brought to you, Mike. Brought to you.
Right.
You don't even have to go get the back scratcher. You can see it. You can want it. You can click on it. And then a van is commissioned. A driver is implemented. The device is delivered. The transaction occurs out of sight, out of mind. I mean, right. And now suddenly you've got 50,001 items in your house.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so another great one, just how great we are at production now, is that it used to take a nail maker about a minute to make one nail. Now modern nail machines can make 356 nails in 1 minute. And so nails were so precious in the past that you had arsonists who would go around burning down buildings and then returning to the site just to take the nails. I mean, it's amazing what we're able to accomplish with manufacturing today. This is a good thing in the grand scheme of time space. At the same time, it's also led us into impulsive purchases, to have homes filled with stuff that we don't need. And that hurts our finances. It leads to debt. It also just leads people to, I mean, people get anxiety when they have too much stuff in their space, right? There's a lot of great studies that suggest that people who have desks like mine are highly anxious because I got stuff all over it. And this explains a lot of my problems right now. I got crap all over my desk, right? Mm-hmm. And this was never an issue in the past. And things have just changed so much.
What would our ancestors make? I mean, assuming they could even get their heads around the invention of television, what would they make of a show like Hoarders? Like, I mean, that's the obvious extreme to what you're talking about. You know, somewhere between a normal person and a hoarder, you've got a collector. I don't understand collections either, but I know they're all the rage. And it all seems to get filed under the notion of acquiring, possessing, and then what? You know, going to look at the collection of stamps or coins or baseball cards or baby dolls in curios. I mean, the collector community, the hoarding reality, all of these things seem to prove, maybe in the extreme, but they're there. They become the subject of TV shows. The problem seems to be right in front of us in living color.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So here's how I'll answer that. So as part of this book, what really set this book off is that, you know, I live in Las Vegas, and obviously you see all sorts of weird stuff in this town, right? But it's the slot machines to me that are the weirdest because they're everywhere. I mean, they're in the bars, they're in the restaurants, they're in the gas stations, they're in the grocery stores.
The airport, dude.
The airport.
They're in the airport. You're standing there in another line, waiting to do another thing, which is get the hell out of Dodge. But wait, there's still time to jam whatever money you didn't manage to lose into the one-armed bandit before you go. Exactly. Shame to waste the opportunity.
And that's the deal, right? Is that people actually do that. And so I'll go get groceries at 7 a.m. And there's people sitting in the little casino at the local grocery store just playing 7 a.m., letting their perishables spoil. And I go, I see that. Like I said, it's like I'm a journalist. I see something weird. Man, that's weird. Oh, right. That means I probably got to figure out why. Mm-hmm. So I start looking into why do people play slot machines? Because it doesn't make sense. Everyone knows the house always wins. Now, long story short is this takes me to this sort of strange twilight zone of casinos that is on the edge of town in Las Vegas. And it's this brand new, fully working casino. But this place gets used entirely for human behavior research. Okay, so it is a sort of living, breathing, working casino laboratory.
Lab within a lab. I mean, if the whole of casino is a lab, this then is the lab on steroids where actual researchers are conducting actual science.
Yes, exactly.
Love it.
And this place is funded by gambling companies, but also a bunch of big tech companies. And while I'm there, I talked to a guy who makes slot machines. He's a slot machine game designer. And
Red was his name?
That was the guy who Red was a guy who changed the nature of slot machines and led them to be as quote unquote addictive as they are now. And this was a tweak he did in the 80s. But the guy that I met, he just is a designer of them. And he sort of walked me through why slot machines work, why they capture attention. Mm-hmm. And it works off this 3-part system that I call the scarcity loop. So it's got these 3 parts. It's got opportunity, it's got unpredictable rewards, and it's got quick repeatability. So you have an opportunity to win something of value, right? Unpredictable rewards, you know that if you keep repeating that thing, that you'll win something eventually. But you don't know how big it's going to be and you don't know when. And then finally, quick repeatability, you can just repeat that behavior over and over and over and over. Ad infinitum, right? You can play slot machines as long as you have money. And what's fascinating is that same 3-part loop, it explains why a lot of things are semi-addictive and why we overdo a lot of things. So for example, it's what makes social media work. It's what makes dating apps work. It's being put into finance apps. It's in all the rise of sports betting. It's in all these different things, right? So I want to know why. Why do people get like, okay, great. We have this 3-part system. This is what makes slot machines alluring. Great. But why at a fundamental level would humans be attracted to this in the first place? So this leads me to this guy who's a psychologist, and he's like 85 years old, still comes into the lab every single day. He's done research on pigeons for years. And he tells me that basically this same system would be found in finding food. So if you think about humans finding food in the past, it's very much like a gamble. It's like you go to the one place you think the food is. No, it's not there. So you go to the other place you think the food is. Oh, it's not there. You go to the other place. Ding, 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 jackpot. You won. Amazing. Fantastic. And then we got to repeat that behavior every day. So he said that basically that sort of, that system is almost sort of embedded in our brains as something that we get fixated on, right? But now it's just being put in all these different systems that we see in life. Now, to sort of, this is a long way of answering your original question, is that he's done all these studies on pigeons, and he can get pigeons to gamble. Like 97% of these pigeons that he does studies on will choose a game that is like a gambling game that gets them less food than another game that is a more predictable game, but that gets them more food. Okay, so you put the pigeons in the little, you take them from the cage, you put them in the little room, and you say, pick a game. Do you want to play this one where every other peck you know you're going to get X amount of food? Or do you want to play this one? This one's more like a slot machine. You don't know when the food's going to come. You peck, you peck, you peck. You don't know when you're going to get the food, but it'll come sometime. But you are going to get less food this game. 97% of these pigeons choose the gambling game.
When it pays off, does it come in the same quantity as the more predictable shoot? Or
they get slightly more food when they win the gambling game. So long run, you end up with way more food if you choose the predictable game. But a win in the gambling game is bigger. So the most interesting thing, though, to me, and I think that this kind of goes back to saying, okay, why are we doing all this distractive nonsense in the first place, is he will take his pigeons out of their normal sort of small sterile cages where they hang out alone and it's a rather boring life. And he'll put them in this big cage, and it's got other pigeons, and it's designed to mimic the wild. So they can build their nests, they go up on ledges, they build roosts, they hang out with their pigeon friends. They do all these things that pigeons are supposed to do in the wild. They live pigeon lives. Then he throws them back in the game, and they all choose the smart game, the optimal game. Every single one. So then he tells me, so there's this theory called the optimal stimulation theory, and it basically says that all species, whether pigeons, dogs, lions, tigers, bears, humans, you name it, we need a certain level of stimulation in our life. And if we don't get it, we go searching for it elsewhere. Now, if you think about how humans used to live, not even that long ago, our lives are pretty stimulating. You were physically working every day. You were mentally working every day. You were outside. You were doing, if we go back to our hunter-gatherer ancestors, you're walking the land looking for food. You're encountering wild animals. You're encountering the elements. You're having to do all these really intense things to survive, right?
And searching, right?
And searching.
It's more searching than finding. It's more trying than succeeding. You're engaged in the process. You're in that loop, in other words.
Yes, exactly. You're in the loop. And when you think about how we live today, it's like we don't really have that anymore, a lot of us. And when you don't get that level of stimulation, you go searching for it elsewhere. You gamble, you spend too much time on social media, you maybe drink to excess. You do all these things that are sort of counterproductive behaviors because you're just trying to fall into the loop some other way, looking for that stimulation.